I saw her naked and we're both damned. Alex had always been a careful person. Best. He liked routines, planning his days and avoiding unnecessary trouble. Living in a small town meant everyone knew each other, which could be comforting but also stifling at times. His life was quiet, predictable, and safe. Exactly the way he liked it. That summer, the sun was brighter than usual, and the air seemed warmer. People were moving slowly, enjoying the long days. But Alex had other plans. He had promised his neighbor Lily that he would help her fix a few things around her house while her father was away. It was a simple favor, but for Alex, helping people was something he took seriously. Lily's house was close to his, just a short walk through the garden-lined street. Her family had been living there for years, and over time, Alex had grown comfortable around them. He and Lily had always been friendly, sharing small talks in passing, laughing at jokes, and sometimes helping each other with schoolwork. But this summer was different. He would be spending more time inside her home than usual, and for the first time he felt a little nervous about how personal the space felt. The morning started normally. Alex carried a toolbox and a few cleaning supplies, making his way through the garden gate. Bang. Lily opened the door with a smile, grateful that he had come early. Thanks for helping, Alex. I don't know what I'd do without you, she said. Her voice was warm, but there was something in her tone, an anxious energy, that made him slightly uneasy. He shrugged, trying to act casual. No problem. Let's just get this done quickly. They began in the living room, moving furniture, fixing a shelf that had been falling apart, and tidying up the space that had been neglected for a while. Everything was going smoothly, and Alex started to relax. They laughed a little, shared small jokes, and the atmosphere felt easy, comfortable, and familiar. Alex thought he could manage this day without any incidents. Then it happened. Lily suddenly realized she couldn't find her backpack, which she had left somewhere in the house. Panic flickered across her face. I know I left it here somewhere, she muttered, glancing around. Alex offered to help. Let's check the bedrooms. Maybe it's in there, he suggested, carrying his toolbox down the hallway. Narration. The house was quiet except for the sound of their footsteps on the wooden floors. Everything seemed normal. Alex opened the first bedroom door, but it was empty. Clothes were scattered, the bed was unmade, and a window let in a golden ray of sunlight. He moved carefully, stepping over a small rug, thinking about how messy teenage rooms could be. He called out, "Not here!" How about the next room? What he didn't know was that Lily had gone to the bathroom to change quickly before starting another chore. She had just closed the door, thinking she was alone. The sound of the creaking floorboard as Alex walked closer made her heart skip a beat. She froze, realizing he was near. Back Alex, unaware of the situation, gently pushed the bathroom door, thinking it was the bedroom. In a flash, their worlds collided in a moment that neither of them could have predicted. Lily screamed, quickly covering herself, while Alex stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock and guilt. The silence of the house was replaced by their racing breaths, panic, and an intense awkwardness neither had ever felt before. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Alex stammered, fumbling to look away and backpedaling out of the room. His hands shook as he realized the gravity of the moment. It was not just an accident. It was a private boundary that had been violated, and he knew it immediately. Best. I didn't mean to. His voice cracked under the weight of his guilt. Lily, equally shocked and frightened, pulled the towel tighter around her. Her face burned with embarrassment and anger. Alex, how could you just... Walk in? She shouted, her voice trembling. It was not just the situation itself, but the betrayal of privacy that stung the most. She felt exposed in a way that made her want to disappear, while at the same time she struggled with the fact that it had all been an accident. Alex nodded frantically, still avoiding eye contact. "Psst. I swear, I didn't know. I thought it was the bedroom." He couldn't stop apologizing. His heart pounded so loudly he thought she must hear it. For a few moments, the house felt impossibly heavy. The air seemed thick, and time itself slowed down. Both of them were frozen, unsure how to handle the aftermath. Then, Alex finally backed away completely, leaning against the hallway wall, trying to regain composure. Lily wrapped herself in the towel, her hands shaking. Neither spoke for a while, the silence stretching and filling the space with tension. After a few minutes, Alex managed to speak. Desperation. "I should go," he said quietly, almost like a whisper. He didn't want to be anywhere near her for fear that any wrong move might make things worse. Lily nodded, not trusting her voice yet. She just pointed to the door and Alex rushed out, closing it gently behind him. Once outside, he took deep breaths, trying to calm himself. His mind raced. What have I done? How do I fix this? Did I just ruin everything? He felt sick, the weight of guilt pressing down on him in a way he had never experienced before. At the same time, he couldn't help but worry about Lily, whether she hated him, whether their friendship would ever be the same.
Lily, alone in the bathroom, sat on the edge of the bathtub, shaking.
Her emotions were a storm of fear, embarrassment, and anger. She had trusted Alex, and now that trust felt fragile, almost broken. She knew it had been an accident, but it didn't make the humiliation any easier.
She felt a mix of resentment and relief. Resentment for the intrusion, relief that it hadn't been anyone else and that Alex was not a malicious person.
For the rest of the day, both Alex and Lily tried to act normally, but it was impossible. Every glance, every small gesture was heavy with unspoken tension. When Alex walked past Lily, their eyes met briefly, and both quickly looked away, heartbeats thundering. They avoided conversations unless necessary, and the friendly laughter that had come so easily before was gone. It felt like a thin glass wall had been placed between them, transparent but unbreakable. That evening, Alex sat in his room, staring at the ceiling. He replayed the incident in his mind over and over, analyzing every movement, every choice that led to the accident. His thoughts were filled with what-ifs. What if I had knocked on the door first? What if I had waited a few seconds? What if she never forgives me? Each question made the guilt heavier, a weight that pressed on his chest and made it hard to breathe. Meanwhile, Lily lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling with tearful eyes. She felt conflicted. She wanted to scream, cry, and run away all at once. She couldn't help but think about how life could change with just one accident, how fragile trust could be, and how easily a single moment could shake the foundation of a relationship she had valued so much. That night, sleep was impossible for both of them. Their minds replayed the accident endlessly, magnifying the embarrassment and guilt. They knew things had changed. Neither could deny it, and neither could say when or if things would ever return to normal. It was a moment that would follow them, silently haunting their interactions, testing their patience, and shaping the choices they would make in the coming days. By the next morning, the sun rose bright and warm, but for Alex and Lily, the light did not feel comforting. It highlighted the weight of what had happened, reminding them both that life could change in an instant, that accidents could leave invisible scars, and that human relationships were delicate and complicated. Each knew that the coming days would be filled with awkward encounters, unspoken tension, and the silent question of how to repair what had been broken, or whether it could even be repaired at all. Even as they went about their daily routines, helping with chores, and carrying on as if nothing had happened, the accident lingered like a shadow. It was invisible to everyone else, but for Alex and Lily, it was undeniable. They were both caught in a silent struggle, each feeling the weight of responsibility, the sting of embarrassment, and the uncertainty of what the future held. And in that quiet, tense space, a single truth became clear. Life had thrown them into a situation neither had anticipated, a moment of vulnerability that would test their courage, their patience, and their ability to forgive. Not just each other, but themselves. The days following the accident were some of the most uncomfortable Alex and Lily had ever experienced. They saw each other almost every day, but something had changed. The easy laughter, the casual chats, and the small jokes they used to share were gone. In their place was a tension so thick that even the smallest interaction felt like walking on thin ice. Every glance, every movement, every word seemed to carry the weight of the incident. Alex tried to act normal, but he found it nearly impossible. He wanted to apologize again, to explain himself, but he knew there was a limit. He had apologized immediately, and he worried that pushing further might make Lily uncomfortable or angry. Bah! Yet the guilt gnawed at him. Face. Every time he closed his eyes, he could see her surprised face, the look of shock and embarrassment. And the moment replayed over and over in his mind. It was a memory he couldn't erase. At school, the awkwardness followed him. Their friends noticed the difference too. Some whispered to each other, asking why Alex and Lily didn't talk like they used to. Others noticed how tense the pair seemed whenever they were in the same room. Rumors in a small town spread fast, even when no one knew the full story. Alex felt his chest tighten whenever someone glanced at him knowingly, as if they were silently judging him. He knew the truth wouldn't survive the whispers, and that made him anxious. Lily experienced a different kind of struggle. She was angry and embarrassed, yes, but she also felt betrayed by a person she had trusted. It wasn't Alex's fault that the accident had happened, but her emotions didn't care about reason.
She wanted to confront him, to say exactly how uncomfortable she felt, but she also worried that speaking out would make things worse. She didn't want to ruin their friendship permanently, yet the memory of the incident weighed heavily on her.
Each time she saw Alex, she felt a mix of fear, confusion, and frustration. At home, Alex couldn't concentrate on anything. Even the smallest task seemed impossible. He would sit at his desk, staring at the homework in front of him, only for his mind to drift to the incident. He thought about how Lily must feel, about how fragile trust could be, and about how a single mistake could ripple through life in ways he hadn't imagined. He felt powerless to fix it. His friends called and asked why he seemed distracted, and he lied, saying he was tired or stressed about school. The truth felt too heavy to share. Lily's life also changed. She avoided spending time in common areas where Alex might appear unexpectedly. She took longer routes to school to avoid walking past his house. Even when she tried to act normal, the memory of that day lingered in her mind. She wondered if he thought about it as much as she did. Did he feel guilty? Was he embarrassed too? Or had he already moved on while she was left carrying the memory? These questions kept her awake at night, turning small worries into big anxieties.
One afternoon, a mutual friend invited both of them to the local park for a group study session.
Neither wanted to go, but the pressure of friends and the desire to avoid suspicion made them accept. At the park, the tension was palpable. Every glance, every accidental brush of hands, Every word felt like it carried invisible sparks. Neither knew what to say, and neither wanted to bring up the incident in front of others. So they smiled awkwardly, spoke minimally, and carried a silence that was heavier than words could express. During a short break, Alex and Lily found themselves alone near the edge of the park, far enough from friends that their conversation felt private but not entirely free. Alex's chest tightened as he thought about what to say. He didn't want to upset her, but he couldn't continue pretending that nothing had happened. Lily, sensing his hesitation, looked at him quietly, waiting. Neither spoke for a long moment, the silence stretching uncomfortably. Breath. Finally, Alex took a deep breath. Despair. I know things have been awkward since that day. I really didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable or upset. His voice was quiet, almost shaking, but it carried sincerity. Back. Lily hesitated, looking down at the ground. She wanted to say something, but words failed her. After a few moments, she finally whispered, I know it was an accident, but it still bothers me. But I can't just pretend it didn't happen. Her voice trembled, revealing the mix of emotions she had been holding inside. Alex nodded, understanding more than she realized. I feel the same way. I can't stop thinking about it either.
I don't know how to fix it. The honesty in his voice surprised him.
He had never admitted his feelings of guilt to anyone so openly before, but somehow it felt necessary. They stood in silence for a while longer, both of them realizing that the tension between them wasn't going to disappear on its own. It was a problem they had to face together, but neither knew exactly how. Every step forward seemed uncertain, like walking on a path with no clear end. Yet there was a small glimmer of relief in finally acknowledging the truth. They weren't pretending anymore. Back at home that evening, Alex's mind raced. He tried to focus on his homework, but every thought returned to the conversation in the park. He thought about how important it was to handle the situation carefully. He didn't want to make things worse for Lily, but he also knew that avoiding her or pretending nothing had happened wasn't a solution. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that the next encounter with her would be crucial. How he behaved, how he spoke, and how he listened would determine whether they could rebuild trust or whether their friendship would crumble. Lily, meanwhile, reflected on the day in her own quiet way. She understood that Alex hadn't intended to invade her privacy, but she still felt shaken. She realized that holding on to anger and embarrassment would only hurt her more. Somehow, she needed to find a way to move forward, to navigate her feelings, and to decide how much trust she could give back. The path wasn't clear, but acknowledging her emotions was the first step. Over the next few days, small incidents continued to remind them of the accident. A misplaced word, an accidental touch on the arm, or even a glance in the hallway could trigger a flash of memory. Each time it happened, both felt their hearts race, their palms sweat, and their stomachs twist. The tension became a silent presence, shaping every interaction, controlling the distance between them, and challenging both to act carefully. Yet, despite the awkwardness, there were small moments of hope. A shared smile when no one else was watching, a brief word of encouragement, or a simple act of kindness reminded them that the bond they had wasn't entirely broken.
It was fragile, yes, but still there, waiting for the right time to heal.
At school, friends began to notice subtle changes. Some commented on the quiet distance between Alex and Lily, while others observed fleeting moments of connection. No one knew the full story, but the air of tension was impossible to ignore. Alex and Lily learned quickly to navigate the social landscape carefully, avoiding attention while silently trying to repair the invisible thread that connected them. By the end of the week, both had realized something important. Avoiding the problem wasn't helping. The longer they pretended nothing had happened, the heavier the tension grew and the more difficult it became to interact normally. They needed a plan, a way to confront their emotions, and a way to move forward without letting guilt, fear, or embarrassment control their lives. One afternoon, while walking home from school, Alex decided to speak up. He glanced at Lily, heart pounding, and said, "We can't keep pretending, can we? This thing between us, it's not going away." Lily nodded silently. She didn't speak at first, but her eyes conveyed the same realization. They had to face the situation together. That evening, both reflected quietly on the events of the past week. Each of them understood that mistakes and accidents were a part of life. What mattered was how they responded, how they communicated, and how they respected each other's feelings. They didn't have all the answers yet, but they knew that honesty, patience, and care would be their guide. And so, the second part of their story ended not with resolution but with understanding. The tension remained, but it had transformed into something different, a mutual awareness that the only way to move forward was together. Both Alex and Lily had faced the truth of the accident, acknowledged their feelings, and recognized that the path ahead would require courage, empathy, and trust. The incident that had once seemed like the end of their friendship had become the first step toward something deeper, a shared journey of growth, understanding, and learning how to navigate life's unexpected moments without letting fear or shame dominate. The week after their quiet understanding passed slowly, each day heavier than the last. Both Alex and Lily had tried to continue with their routines, but the tension that lingered between them refused to fade. It was as if the accident had left an invisible mark, a shadow that followed every step, every glance, every word. Both of them carried the memory silently, unsure of how to face it directly. Then, one afternoon, fate intervened, in the form of an unexpected accident. Lily was in her backyard trying to clean and organize the garden. It was an unusually hot day, and she had been working steadily for hours. She bent over to lift a heavy flower pot when her foot slipped on the damp grass. She lost her balance, hitting the ground hard and twisting her ankle painfully. A sharp pain shot through her leg, and she cried out in distress. By sheer chance, Alex had just finished a run and was walking past Lily's house when he heard her scream. Panic surged through him. He ran to the backyard, seeing her sitting on the grass, holding her ankle, her face contorted in pain. "Lily, are you okay?" he shouted, dropping his bag and rushing to her side. Desperation. Lily's eyes widened in surprise. "Alex! I think I hurt my ankle," she said through gritted teeth. The sudden vulnerability, combined with the pain, made her voice tremble. She was forced to rely on him, despite the awkward tension that had plagued their friendship since the incident. Alex knelt beside her, examining her ankle carefully. "We need to get you inside," he said gently. His heart pounded, not just from concern for her injury, but because this moment forced them into close proximity. He felt the weight of the past week, the unresolved tension, and the guilt of the earlier accident pressing down on him. Every nerve in his body was on edge. Lily nodded, wincing as she tried to move.
I can't put weight on it, she admitted.
Alex carefully lifted her, supporting her under the arms, and helped her inside the house. The walk through the hallway felt endless. Neither spoke much. The silence was heavy, with unspoken thoughts and emotions. Each step brought memories of the previous incident to the surface, making both feel a mix of fear, guilt, and uncertainty. Once inside, Alex helped Lily onto the couch. He fetched ice for her ankle, wrapping it gently while trying to maintain a respectful distance. Psst. I'm so sorry this happened, he said softly, though he meant more than just the ankle. I know this is awkward. Lily looked at him, her eyes a mix of pain and frustration. It's not your fault, she said, though her voice carried more than just the words. There was a tension in her tone that betrayed her inner struggle. She wanted to be angry, to lash out, but she also knew he hadn't meant to hurt her, physically or emotionally. For the first time since the original accident, they were forced to confront the situation directly. The shared vulnerability created an opening, a chance to address the feelings they had both been avoiding. Alex sat down near her, careful not to crowd her space, and spoke in a quiet, measured tone. Lily, about last week, I've been thinking about it constantly. I feel awful that I made you uncomfortable. I don't want things to stay like this between us.
Lily sighed, her hands clutching the ice pack on her ankle. I've been thinking about it too, she admitted. I know it was an accident, Alex. I know you didn't mean to.
Bay, invade my privacy. But it still shook me.
I've been trying to act normal, but every time I see you, I feel...
Breaths. Nervous. Uneasy. Alex nodded slowly, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. Relief that she was willing to talk about it. Anxiety because he knew that honesty would not erase the past.
I get it, he said gently. I feel the same way.
I can't stop thinking about it either. I've been scared of saying the wrong thing or making it worse. His voice trembled slightly, but it was full of sincerity. For a moment, they just looked at each other. The room was quiet except for the faint sound of a fan, the occasional bird outside, and their own breathing. The tension was still there, but now it was mixed with understanding. Both realized that the only way forward was through honesty, not avoidance. Lily shifted slightly, her voice quieter now.
I don't want to hate you, Alex. I don't want this.
Accident to ruin everything. But I don't know how to forget it either. Brass. She paused, looking at him with something that was almost pleading. Can we just be on? No pretending? Alex smiled faintly, a small spark of hope breaking through the heaviness. Yes. No pretending. I think that's the only way we can get past this. He leaned back, trying to relax, though his heart still pounded in his chest. But now that it had happened, it felt like a step toward healing. As they talked, the conversation shifted from the accident itself to their feelings about it, their worries, and their fears. Alex admitted that he had been losing sleep, feeling guilty and anxious about every interaction. Lily shared how the embarrassment had made her cautious and uneasy, even in situations unrelated to him. They both realized that the incident had affected them more than they had anticipated. With each word, the tension eased slightly. They laughed softly at small misunderstandings from earlier in the week, a reminder that despite the awkwardness, their friendship still had space for lightness. The forced confrontation, though uncomfortable, had opened a door. Peak. They began to understand each other's perspectives in ways they hadn't before, and the foundation for rebuilding trust started to form. Then came a moment of silence, where neither spoke but both felt the weight of what had been shared. The shared vulnerability created a sense of connection that neither had felt since the accident. They realized that being honest, even about uncomfortable emotions, was not a weakness but a strength. It allowed them to confront their fears rather than hide from them. After a few minutes, Lily spoke again, her tone calmer, more composed. I think I can forgive you, Alex. Not because what happened wasn't serious, but because I see that you really care. You didn't mean to hurt me. Alex felt a wave of relief. Thank you, Lily. That means more than I can say. I hope we can rebuild our friendship. I don't want this accident to define us. She nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. We can, but we have to be honest from now on, no matter how awkward it gets.
Alex agreed, understanding that honesty and communication were the only ways forward. No pretending, he repeated.
We face things together, even if it's uncomfortable. That afternoon marked a turning point. The accident in the backyard, though painful and frightening, had forced them into a situation where avoidance was impossible. They had been pushed to confront their emotions directly, to acknowledge the tension and guilt that had been quietly consuming them, and to begin the process of healing. As the sun began to set, casting warm light into the room, both Alex and Lily felt a sense of calm they hadn't experienced in days. The awkwardness was still there, but it was no longer oppressive. It had transformed into a quiet understanding, a recognition that accidents happen, that mistakes can shake trust, but that honesty and courage could restore it. For the first time since the initial incident, both felt hope. Hope that their friendship could survive, that they could rebuild the trust that had been shaken, and that they could face future challenges together without fear. They had confronted their emotions directly, and in doing so had discovered a strength within themselves and in each other that neither had known existed. As Alex left Lily's house later that evening, he felt a mix of exhaustion and relief. The confrontation had been intense, but necessary. He knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that moments of awkwardness or tension would still appear, but the foundation for healing had been laid. Lily, watching him leave, felt the same, a quiet reassurance that, despite the accident and the weeks of unease, they were no longer trapped by fear or guilt. In that moment, both Alex and Lily understood a profound truth. Life was unpredictable, mistakes happened, and boundaries could be crossed unintentionally. But human connection, when nurtured with honesty, patience, and empathy, could survive even the most difficult situations. They had faced the moment that had haunted them, confronted their emotions, and taken the first steps toward restoring their friendship and trust. And though the shadow of the original accident would never completely disappear, it had been transformed into a lesson, a moment of growth, and a reminder that courage and communication could overcome even the most uncomfortable and challenging situations. After the backyard incident and their honest conversation, Alex and Lily both felt a sense of relief. But that relief was short-lived. Life outside the walls of Lily's house did not pause, and the world around them had not forgotten the subtle tension that had been building between them. Rumors had already begun to spread, small whispers among neighbors, casual comments from friends, and the faint curiosity that always seemed to follow events in a small town. Even though no one knew the details, the perception of awkwardness between Alex and Lily was enough to draw attention.
It started with casual questions. Apologies complete independent. This is your.
Friends would ask, "Are you two okay?" or comment on the fact that Alex seemed quieter than usual. People noticed Lily avoiding him sometimes and giving brief, polite answers.
Even teachers began to observe that something seemed different in their usual friendly interactions. It was harmless curiosity, but for Alex and Lily, it felt like pressure, an invisible weight that reminded them their private moment had consequences beyond their own feelings. Alex felt it most sharply at school. Every glance from a classmate or passing comment from a friend seemed magnified. He knew the truth about the incident, but he also understood that the perception of others could affect both him and Lily. He worried about how gossip could twist reality, and he feared that no matter how careful they were, the story of a single accident could spread into something unrecognizable. Lily experienced it differently. She felt the pressure of judgment more personally. She wanted to move on, but each small comment reminded her that their private moment was no longer entirely private. She feared misunderstanding or blame from people who did not know the full story.
At times, she questioned whether she had been too harsh or whether she should have spoken sooner, but she quickly realized that those thoughts only made her more anxious.
The tension reached a critical point one afternoon when both Alex and Lily were asked to work together on a school project. They had no choice but to spend extended time in close proximity, away from the watchful eyes of classmates. The assignment required focused communication and trust, the very things that had been shaken by the accident. As they walked to the library together, the unspoken weight of their shared history pressed down on them. Each step, each glance carried the memory of their previous awkwardness, making the air between them thick with emotion. Once in the library, they tried to focus on the project, but it was difficult. Small hesitations in speech, pauses in conversation, and careful movements reminded them constantly of the incident and the conversation that followed. For Alex, it was a test of patience and self-control. He had to resist the urge to apologize repeatedly or to over-explain himself. For Lily, it was a test of trust, learning to interact naturally without letting fear or embarrassment dictate her behavior.
After several tense minutes, Alex spoke up, his voice low but steady. "Lily, I know this is awkward, but we've done the hard part, right?"
We talked about what happened. Maybe we can just focus on the project and let everything else
Rest for now. Lily nodded, trying to smile.
You're right. I don't want to let this control everything.
She took a deep breath, feeling a small sense of empowerment. But she realized that facing the situation directly had given her strength, but she also understood that healing was a process, not a single conversation. Despite their efforts, the consequences of the incident were unavoidable. Gossip in the small town continued, and both Alex and Lily were confronted in subtle ways. Comments from friends, neighbors, and even distant acquaintances reminded them that privacy was fragile. They began to realize that even when one takes responsibility and faces an incident with honesty, external perceptions can still create challenges. The world around them did not pause for their healing. It was during one particularly stressful day that the most difficult choice emerged. A group of students approached them, trying to tease or provoke a reaction. While the teasing was mild, it highlighted the fragility of their situation and reminded both Alex and Lily that rumors could easily distort reality. Alex could feel his heart race, and Lily's hands trembled slightly. They looked at each other, silently agreeing that ignoring the situation was no longer enough. Something had to be done to regain control of the narrative and protect themselves from the impact of gossip. Later that evening, they met at Lily's backyard, the site of the earlier accident. The place was quiet, the sun casting long shadows across the garden, and the calm environment gave them the privacy they needed. "We need to decide," Alex said quietly. "Do we tell someone the truth, or do we keep handling this ourselves?"
I don't want rumors to ruin things for us.
Lily considered it carefully. She understood the risk of sharing the story. It could lead to embarrassment or judgment, but she also knew that keeping it a secret left them vulnerable.
Maybe we need to tell the truth just enough so that people stop making assumptions. Not every detail, but enough so no one twists it.
Alex nodded, feeling a sense of relief.
But carefully. That way, we protect ourselves and each other.
They both realized that it was a delicate balance, protecting their privacy while also taking responsibility to prevent misunderstandings. Making the decision was only part of the challenge.
The next step was execution, and that required courage. They had to speak to friends, teachers, and neighbors in a way that was clear, calm, and composed. It wasn't easy. Alex felt nervous every time he mentioned the incident, worried that someone would misinterpret his words.
Lily struggled with her own anxiety, fearing judgment or ridicule. But they faced it together, supporting one another and reinforcing the trust that had begun to rebuild.
Over the next few days, their efforts began to show results. Friends started to treat them normally, gossip slowed, and interactions became more relaxed. The pressure lifted gradually, allowing both Alex and Lily to focus more on their friendship and personal growth. They realized that accountability, communication, and courage were essential not only in resolving the incident, but in navigating life's unexpected challenges. But at home, Alex reflected on the experience. He understood that mistakes, accidents, and misunderstandings were part of life. What mattered most was how one responded, whether with honesty, care, and responsibility, or with avoidance and fear. He felt proud of himself for facing the situation directly, but he also recognized that personal growth was ongoing. But trust could be rebuilt, but it required consistent effort, patience, and empathy. Lily, too, experienced a profound sense of growth. The incident had tested her boundaries, emotions, and ability to forgive. She realized that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a strength. By confronting her feelings and choosing to act with honesty and courage, she had reclaimed her sense of agency. She also recognized the importance of empathy, not just for Alex, but for herself as well. She had learned to balance caution with compassion and strength with understanding. Despite the progress, both Alex and Lily knew that life would continue to present challenges. The incident had taught them that mistakes could happen in an instant, but the way people respond could define their future relationships. They had learned the importance of facing situations head-on, of communicating openly, and of protecting themselves while maintaining integrity. These lessons were more valuable than any fear or embarrassment, and they both felt better prepared to handle life's uncertainties. By the end of the week, the air between them had changed. The tension was no longer heavy and oppressive. It had transformed into a quiet awareness, a mutual understanding that both had endured a difficult experience and emerged stronger. They laughed together again, shared small stories, and worked on projects with ease. The shadow of the accident was still there, but it no longer controlled them. Instead, it served as a reminder of their resilience, courage, and ability to navigate challenges together. That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with shades of gold and pink, Alex and Lily sat quietly in the backyard, reflecting on everything that had happened. "We've come a long way," Alex said softly, smiling.
It wasn't easy, but I feel like we understand each other better now. Lily nodded, returning the smile.
Yes, we faced something difficult, but we faced it together. I think that makes us stronger, not just as friends, but as people. They sat in comfortable silence, knowing that life would continue to test them in different ways. Yet, they were ready. The lessons of honesty, courage, empathy, and responsibility had taken root, and they felt capable of facing whatever challenges might come next. The incident that once seemed like a disaster had become a turning point, a catalyst for growth, understanding, and resilience. And as they watched the last rays of sunlight disappear behind the horizon, both Alex and Lily realized that sometimes the hardest moments in life were also the ones that taught the most important lessons. Life was unpredictable, mistakes happened, and boundaries could be crossed unintentionally. But with courage, communication, and empathy, even the most uncomfortable and challenging situations could be faced, understood, and overcome. The days after Alex and Lily's difficult decisions felt lighter, though they knew life would never be entirely the same. The incident, the rumors, and the confrontation had left their mark. But it had also created an opportunity for growth. They had faced fear, embarrassment, and misunderstanding. And now, slowly, they were learning how to move forward. The air between them was different, less tense, more cautious, but now accompanied by a sense of respect and understanding that hadn't existed before. Alex woke up that morning feeling a mix of relief and determination. He knew that the hardest part was over, but he also understood that rebuilding trust and connection required ongoing effort.
Every interaction with Lily, every small gesture mattered now.
He was more aware of her comfort, her boundaries, and her feelings.
Gone was the carelessness that had led to the accident. In its place was a conscious effort to act with thoughtfulness, patience, and empathy. Lily, too, felt a quiet strength growing inside her. She had learned that vulnerability was not something to fear, but something to manage with courage and honesty. She recognized that accidents and mistakes were part of life, but so was the ability to respond with integrity. By facing the situation head-on, she had not only protected herself, but had also contributed to the restoration of a friendship that was important to her. That morning, Alex decided to visit Lily's house, not because there was a chore to complete or a favor to ask, but simply to talk. He wanted to ensure that their interactions were natural again and that no unspoken tension remained. When he arrived, Lily opened the door with a small, genuine smile. It wasn't forced, it wasn't nervous. It was the kind of smile that signaled hope, relief, and the possibility of moving forward. "Hey, Alex," she said softly. "Come in."
He stepped inside, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders.
The house was quiet, the sunlight streaming through the windows, painting the walls with warmth. It felt familiar, safe, and welcoming. The way it had before the incident, yet different, now layered with understanding and mutual respect. They sat in the living room, talking about small everyday things at first. School, friends, plans for the weekend. The conversation flowed naturally, with laughter returning in soft bursts, like sunlight breaking through clouds. There was no need to mention the incident immediately. The tension that had defined their interactions for weeks was gone, replaced by the slow, steady process of rebuilding trust. After a while, Alex took a deep breath.
Lily, I just want you to know that I'm grateful, he said quietly. Grateful that we could talk, that we faced what happened, and that we're moving forward.
I don't take that for granted. Lily looked at him thoughtfully. I'm grateful too, she admitted. It wasn't easy, and I don't think it will ever be forgotten completely. But it doesn't have to define us, does it? Bae, no, it doesn't define us. We decide what defines us, not one moment or mistake.
Bae. For the first time in weeks, they both felt free from the invisible weight that had been pressing on them.
The lesson was clear. Life could be unpredictable, accidents could happen, and mistakes could shake the foundation of relationships. But the way people respond, communicate, and act afterward was what truly mattered. Over the next few days, their friendship continued to grow stronger. They worked together on school projects, shared casual conversations without fear, and even joked with friends in ways that had felt impossible during the tense weeks after the accident. Each moment of connection was a small victory, a sign that trust and understanding could be restored with effort, patience, and honesty. Outside pressures remained, but Alex and Lily had learned how to navigate them. When someone whispered, asked a question, or made a small comment about the awkwardness between them, they handled it with composure. They didn't need to share every detail, but they answered honestly enough to prevent misunderstanding. Their courage in facing the situation had given them confidence, not arrogance, but a steady assurance that they could handle life's challenges together. One afternoon, they decided to revisit the backyard where the earlier accident had occurred. The garden was quiet, filled with the gentle sound of leaves rustling in the wind. They sat on the grass, the sunlight warm but not harsh, and looked around, remembering how tense and frightening that day had been. "It's strange, isn't it?" Lily said after a moment. "This place, it caused so much stress. but now it feels calm. Almost like it helped us grow. Alex nodded.
Yes.
It's a reminder. A reminder that mistakes can happen, but how we handle them makes all the difference. We could have let it ruin everything, but we didn't. We chose to face it. They both smiled, feeling a sense of closure. Not all memories fade completely, but they could coexist with growth, understanding, and hope. The shadow of the accident was still there, but it no longer controlled them. It had become a part of their story, yes, but not the end. As the days turned into weeks, Alex and Lily found themselves more confident not just in their friendship, but in themselves. They had learned valuable lessons about accountability, honesty, empathy, and courage. They realized that life would continue to test them in unexpected ways, but the tools they had developed, communication, patience, and understanding, would help them navigate any challenge. School continued as usual, and their classmates noticed the difference. The tension that had been so noticeable was gone. Alex and Lily laughed freely again, collaborated without hesitation, and interacted with others without fear of judgment. Their ability to handle the aftermath of the incident had strengthened not only their friendship but also their individual resilience. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Alex and Lily walked home together. The air was filled with the gentle sounds of summer, distant laughter, the rustle of leaves, and the soft hum of evening insects.
The world seemed calm, ordinary, and yet meaningful in its simplicity.
Alex glanced at Lily and said softly, "You know, I think this experience has taught me more than I could have imagined."
About life, about mistakes, about people.
Lily nodded in agreement.
Me too. It's strange, isn't it? Inspiration. Something that started as a mistake, something that felt like a disaster, turned into a lesson I'll never forget. About trust, courage, and understanding. They walked in silence for a while, comfortable in each other's company, their steps in rhythm. The incident that had once felt like a burden was now a memory, a reminder that life was fragile, human connections were delicate, and that mistakes, no matter how serious, could be overcome with effort, honesty, and compassion. By the time they reached their street, both felt a sense of peace. They knew challenges would continue to arise, but they also knew that they were capable of facing them together. The trust they had rebuilt, the understanding they had nurtured, and the courage they had developed would guide them through life's uncertainties. Before parting ways, Alex smiled and said, "I'm glad we handled this together." Me too, Alex. Me too. As they walked to their respective homes, the evening sky stretched above them, vast and full of possibilities. The story of the accident, of the awkward tension, and of the confrontation had come full circle. What had begun as a moment of fear, guilt, and embarrassment had ended as a journey of growth, trust, and understanding. In the days and months that followed, Alex and Lily continued their lives with a quiet strength. The incident was never forgotten, but it no longer held power over them. Instead, it became a source of reflection, a story they could think back on with clarity and perspective. They knew that mistakes could happen to anyone, that life could be unpredictable, and that human connections required care, courage, and empathy. Ultimately, they had learned that it wasn't the accident itself that defined them, but how they chose to respond. By facing their fears, communicating honestly, and respecting each other's boundaries, they had not only restored their friendship but also grown as individuals. The shadow of guilt had lifted, replaced by the light of understanding and resilience. And in that quiet, everyday peace, walking home from school, sitting in the garden, sharing a simple conversation, they found the true meaning of trust, friendship, and the strength that comes from confronting life's challenges head-on.